Phonics First, Building the Bridge to Comprehension. Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode on KZ Academy. I'm Misty, a credentialed teacher with over 20 years of experience in second language acquisition, mathematics, and elementary education. Through teaching, coaching, and tutoring, I've dedicated my career to helping students, parents, and educators understand the science behind how we learn. This episode is inspired by posts I've made since 2018 in online forums, which helped lay the groundwork for what is now known as the science of reading. Many of the key ideas that Emily Hanford later presented as her research were already being discussed and shared by me in these forums before she brought them to a wider audience. It's gratifying to see that the techniques I've been refining for over 20 years are now being embraced across America. Her voice played a crucial role in raising awareness and bringing these ideas into the mainstream. In today's episode, I'm responding to Dr. Shanahan's post where he compares teaching phonics first to tipping a boat. He opens with a tragic metaphor, the sinking of the SS Eastland, a ship that rode and capsized when passengers shifted too heavily to one side. The metaphor is a powerful image, and his concerns are clear. If we emphasize phonics too heavily, especially in the early grades, we risk capsizing students' reading development by ignoring the rest of the essential skills. But I'd like to offer a different metaphor, one that more accurately reflects how children learn to read. Reading is not like passengers shifting weight on a ship. Reading is like building a bridge. A solid foundation comes first. Reading is a complex, layered process, like a bridge that must be carefully engineered before it can bear the weight of traffic. That traffic that needs to cross the bridge is fluency and comprehension of the words. If you rush to tow those heavy loads onto the structure before it's ready, you risk collapse. Phonics First isn't about imbalance, it's about sequencing. You start at the foundation, laying sound letter correspondence, building blending skills, and helping students decode words before expecting the structure to carry the heavy weight of meaning. In December of 2019, I wrote, "You should look into the science of reading. One major misconception is that children learn to read by having books read to them. Children learn to enjoy books through connecting with people while others read to them, but they do not learn to read this way. Learning to read is not a natural process." That quote still holds true. Reading is not absorbed. It is constructed deliberately, brick by brick, sound by sound. Decoding before comprehending. Dr. Shanahan points out Scarborough's rope, that its simple view of reading, and the National Reading Panel, all of which agree that reading comprehension depends on both decoding and language comprehension. He's not wrong. But the important part that often gets glossed over is that reading comprehension can't even begin to happen if the person cannot read the words on the page. No child in any grade level will comprehend a sentence unless they can actually read the words in the sentence first. There is no comprehension strategy that overcomes the inability to read when a test is testing a person's reading comprehension skills. Trying to teach comprehension before decoding is like laying train tracks in midair. You might stretch them from one side to the other, but without a bridge underneath to support it, nothing can cross. And yet, that's exactly what happens in too many classrooms. Schools rush or skip systematic phonics, flood early readers with sight words, and assume reading comprehension will just happen. Why phonics first matters. Phonics isn't the end goal, but it is the starting point. The ability to blend sounds into words doesn't come naturally to most people. It takes structured practice, repetition, feedback, and time. Phonics doesn't follow comprehension. It cannot. Phonics makes reading possible, and reading makes reading comprehension possible. Phonics enables reading comprehension. In August of 2020, I wrote, Learning to read phonetically through exposure to regular words is really hard, almost impossible. There are about 44 sounds, and there are more than double that number of graphemes, letter combinations, to make those sounds. Instead, most young children are using sight guessing words. Sight guessing words, by shape and context, works pretty well in lower elementary. By upper elementary, that number goes up exponentially. It takes longer to break habits they have already established, like random guessing. In other words, memorizing words works until it does not. And when it stops working at around third grade, many students find themselves stranded and unable to cross the comprehension bridge because the supports were never built. In November of 2020, I wrote, "Read a variety of words and practice. Many students in K and First start guessing words from the sound the first letter makes. Unfortunately, they get to third grade and those short, guessable 300 or so words becomes over 1,000 decodable words. And all of a sudden, they are like deer in headlights. Find a good phonics program and work through it." In the early grades, students are often expected to memorize about 100 high-frequency sight words per year. That can mask decoding problems. If a student memorizes enough of those words, they can appear to be reading. But what looks like reading is often just a fragile workaround. By third grade, the demands shift. The texts become more complex. The vocabulary expands, and suddenly, students are expected to decode over 1,000 unfamiliar words. At that point, memorization and guessing are no longer enough. Students who never learned to decode systematically and who were never taught to read using phonics often find themselves overwhelmed and confused. The bridge was never built, and now they're stuck. Humans learn sequentially. Humans don't learn by trying to master multiple new skills at once. We learn by building one skill on top of another in a logical sequence. It's like building a bridge. First, you lay a strong foundation. Then, you construct the supports and spans. Only when the structure is secure can you lay the tracks that allow the trains, full of cargo, to cross safely. You learn letter sounds in order to blend. You blend in order to read words. You read words in order to read sentences. You read sentences in order to read paragraphs. You read paragraphs in order to read chapters. You read chapters in order to read books. You read books in order to read anthologies. Step by step, the skill is built. It starts with being able to read before you have a chance to comprehend the information you are reading. Reading comprehension doesn't begin until after a person is able to read. This isn't just philosophy. It's how the human brain learns. I'm not suggesting that language comprehension can't begin early. In fact, I strongly support developing language comprehension from birth through read-alouds, meaningful conversations, and exposure to rich vocabulary. But when it comes to comprehending written text, that process cannot begin until a child can actually read the words on the page. Shortcuts that fail. For decades, reading instruction relied heavily on sight words, a shortcut meant to help kids get reading quickly, but it bypassed the slow, difficult process of decoding. And with most shortcuts, the cost came later. Kids learned to guess. They were taught to use the first letter, rely on context clues, and look at pictures to figure out unfamiliar words. And in the lower grade levels, that often seemed to work. After all, the books they were given were designed to support those strategies. But as students progressed, everything changed. The vocabulary became much more complex, and the number of unfamiliar words increased dramatically. Suddenly, the guessing strategies that once seemed effective no longer worked. These early methods weren't scalable, and because many students were never taught to decode words systematically, they had no solid foundation to fall back on when the demands of reading increased. The human brain. Our brains are wired to find the shortest route to an answer. Given the choice, it will always opt for the easiest shortcut, even if that shortcut does not lead to long-term success. It's the part that no one wants to do for months on end. It's repetitive, it's tricky, but it is essential. And our brains are wired to find the shortest route to an answer. The brain will choose the shortest if given the choice. It is working hard and finding the easiest way possible to learn in the moment, even if the strategy fails long term. That's why we can't rely on motivation or balance alone. Sometimes learning isn't fun. It's repetitive, challenging, and even tedious. But to build a strong foundation, it's necessary. We must respect the learning sequence, taking the time to build the foundation carefully. Just like constructing a bridge, we have to build skills layer by layer before we can cross it. Phonics First is not phonics only. Phonics First does not mean phonics only. It means phonics foundationally. Comprehension can and should be supported in oral language, storytelling, vocabulary, and exposure to content. But Phonics First gives students the key that unlocks written language. Only then can reading comprehension be developed as a combined skill. Phonics First, then fluency, then reading comprehension as a combined skill. In that order, it's not just an ideology. It is cognitively necessary. We're not tipping the boat. We're building the bridge. Dr. Shanahan is right to worry about imbalance, but the metaphor matters. We're not shifting weight recklessly and risking capsizing the boat. We're laying stones one by one to build the solid foundation to skilled reading. And some of that foundation is laid long before kindergarten through early exposure, play, and rich oral language. When students seem to read quickly in school, it may be because their bridge started forming earlier. But for others, the lessons in school are their only shot at that structure. Skipping phonics is not a shift in weight. It's a missing support beam. The train of knowledge can't run on the track built in midair. So let's not panic about tipping the boat. Let's focus on finishing building the bridge. Let's trust students to do the hard work when we give them the tools and the time to do it right. Phonics first, then fluency, then reading comprehension. Not for balance, for sequence, for success. Lifelong learning through hard work with a positive attitude and integrity. If you found this discussion helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring the fascinating world of education. Practical tips and resources. In upcoming episodes, we'll explore practical strategies for effective reading instruction. But if you're eager to get started now, check out my Learn to Read Teacher's Manuals, Volumes 1 and 2, and the Student Learn to Read and Write Journal. These resources offer a clear, systematic path for teaching letter recognition, phonics, and blending, like constructing a sturdy foundation for strong reading skills. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.